Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1141, 1141, Sunday, May the 24th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, let's go ahead and get to the news of the day. Okay, and don't forget to get your comments in the comment section, to get your vote in. Get your vote in the comments section of this video for your pick for Dumbass of the Week. Dumbass of the Week. And please try to get your comments in by 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's for this week's Dumbass of the Week. Something tells me I have a pretty good idea who's going to win this week. But I won't say anything. I'll just keep it to myself. But I know who I'm going to vote for. Now, let's talk about the latest news that broke regarding the Michael Flynn case yesterday. It appears that Judge Emmett Sullivan, the social justice warrior, resistance judge, who's making a debauchery of the legal system in the case with Michael Flynn, has now hired Beth Wilkensen. Beth Wilkensen. She, of course, is the high-powered D.C. attorney who represented Brett Kavanaugh. She also is currently representing Cheryl Mills in the lawsuit that's ongoing with Judicial Watch concerning the Right Reverend Clinton's illegal private server and the destruction of those emails. It was Cheryl, Cheryl Mills, who supervised the destruction of those emails. Now, it looks like Sullivan is going to have Beth Wilkensen to make his case for him to these appeals court justices, the three judges on the appeals court, over this writ of mandamus suit that was filed by Sidney Powell on behalf of Michael Flynn. Now, I don't think that this is exactly what the judges had in mind. I think what they had in mind was to hear Judge Sullivan's opinion, to hear his reason, his excuse, whatever you want to call it, for why he took the track he did in the Flynn case when the Department of Justice had decided that they were going to pull the case. They weren't going to prosecute the case anymore. At which point, as a judge, he should dismiss the case. But he's decided to act as prosecutor/judge. And we know what he's done since then. So I don't know at this point whether or not this is an option that's available to him. I guess he's allowed to have a lawyer to do this. But I think the original intent of these appeals court judges was to have Sullivan himself explain himself, not to have a high-priced lawyer come in and try to make an excuse for which there really is no excuse. And I think that's probably why he hired Beth Wilkensen. She's a spin artist. She represents people, but she's supposedly a really good lawyer. But again, I'm not sure that that the appeals court's going to go for this. I mean, they might say no. Well, they might say, yeah, you can have your lawyer present, but we're going to want to hear from you. And so let's see where this goes with these judges. I don't think they're going to be very entertained by what he did here, because I think it was pretty clear they wanted to hear from him. And it tells you a lot about Judge Sullivan. Obviously, he doesn't feel capable of going in there and explaining his position. He must not feel very confident about his position, that he has to reach out to Beth Wilkensen. Now, if he wants to play this little game, if it were me and I was on that appeals court judge, I would, and the Department of Justice is also now involved in this effort, I think I would play the same game with him that the Department of Justice played with Flynn and Stone and Manafort and all the rest of these guys. Which is to get them in a long, protracted legal battle where they would eventually run out of money and be forced to capitulate. I would, if I were these judges, I wouldn't just let this be a one-offer. I would arrange things so that there has to be another hearing, and then another hearing, and then another hearing, and then another hearing. And they want to drag this thing out? Okay, go ahead. Let's drag it out. And I would let the DOJ take the lead so Sidney Powell could take second position behind this so that she doesn't have to expend all her time or resources. and play the same game and force Sullivan to keep paying Beth Wilkensen's extremely high legal fees and drag this out for as long as it takes until Judge Sullivan runs out of cash. I would bankrupt this son of a bitch the same way that he's trying to do to Flynn, which he's already done to Flynn. And that's what I would do. I mean, if he wants to play that game, I would play that game as well. So we'll have to just follow this and see, because we haven't had the response yet from the appeals court judges. But I'm absolutely certain that this is not what they had in mind. We'll keep following this story, because this has to happen. It was 10 days from 2 days ago, so 8 days from now. So in 8 days from now, he's going to have to make his case, or his lawyer is going to have to make the case. But I would be very surprised, even if they allow his lawyer to do this, Wilkensen, I'd be very surprised if the appeals court judges don't address him directly and say, you can have a judge there, but we want to hear from you what your thinking was on this. So we'll just have to follow it and see where this goes. But I can tell you that just from watching the legal experts that I've been watching over the past week on this issue, that they all say that it's a dead dog. The only thing that Sullivan could do is try to drag things out, which may be what they're trying to do. To drag things out. Same thing we saw back before the midterm elections in 2018. The same tactics. Drag it out until the election. So I don't think that these appeals court judges are going to allow that to happen. I think they're going to put the kibosh on this pretty quickly. And the Department of Justice has now also joined in on this as well. They're going to make the case to the appeals court that, hey, we're trying to drop the damn case. So I don't think it's going to end well for Judge Sullivan at this point. The only thing Beth Wilkensen can do is maybe help him save a little face. But I think he's pretty much ruined his reputation, and I would like to see him forced out of the legal business. He should be done being a judge at this point, in my opinion. Time for him to retire. Well, we have an interesting segment from Ron Paul on his broadcast this past week, where he's making the argument that the lockdowns are unconstitutional. And I've been saying this for about a week now. It's the more that you see this, the more you start to think, wait a minute, what are the constitutional grounds for being able to force people to do what they're doing? And some of these things are ridiculous. The closing of churches, telling people they can't go boating, telling people they can't go swimming. I mean, some of this stuff is completely ridiculous. I mean, I think at some point the government can caution us. I think they can advise us. I think they can give us public health, information and things and such. But I still believe that our Constitution provides that we still have the ultimate decision over our health and our lives. And we're crossing a very dangerous Rubicon to go into an area where governors can use things like this to go into lockdown mode or target specific people they want to shut down. Because if they get away with this, they're going to do it again. There'll be some other flu or some other virus or some other issue that will come along, and they'll use this as a precedent to do this. And it will be political. It will be politically targeted. You can bet on that. You cannot give Democrats, these type of power-hungry sociopaths, this kind of power. You cannot put this tool in their toolbox. They will abuse it. And I believe that's the point that Ron Paul is making. Now, I'll tell you what's going to be something we're all going to probably see happen here, is we're probably going to see the Democrats run this game all the way out, because that's really all they've got now. Everything else has failed. So I think that they'll try to run this game out, although the economic conditions and the fact that they're having revolts in these liberal states or states where they have liberal governors, I think the people may bring it to a conclusion before they can run it all the way to the end game, which I believe will be the election. In fact, I bet you if these liberal governors are able to run this game all the way to the election, I bet you the day after the election, it'll all go away. The day after the election, the whole coronavirus thing, they'll stop talking about it. They'll stop reporting on it. It'll just literally disappear, poof, into thin air. You won't hear another word about it. The day after the election, it'll all go away. Man, you can see these people coming a mile away. Sociopaths. Now, I don't know how many of you had a chance to read Lee Smith's article from last week over there on tabletmag.com. Tabletmag.com. Lee Smith. Excellent article. As is the case a lot of times with Lee Smith, though, he does write fairly lengthy articles, but that's because he researches so much. He puts a lot of detail in his articles. It's a great article, though. And essentially, it's an article which is called How Russiagate Began, and it deals with the Iran deal, and it goes all the way back to 2014. So what Lee Smith does here is he goes back to the origins of when Michael Flynn first was targeted. He takes it back to a hearing when Michael Flynn was appearing with some other members of the intel community, Clapper and those guys, Mike Morrell, and they're carrying the Obama talking point line, which is that Al-Qaeda is the JV team and ISIS, they're weak and they're just about knocked out and all this kind of stuff. Then Michael Flynn comes up and testifies and says, oh, not by a long shot. That's not true at all. I disagree with my colleagues. I think ISIS is on the move. I think Al-Qaeda is growing. I think they're expanding. All this type of stuff. So he came out and he really completely took the opposite position of the Obama administration and even the opposite position of some of the other intel heads. And apparently he was fired right after that. And it's also pointed out by Lee Smith in his article, and he puts the evidence there. None of this stuff is just Lee Smith making accusations. You can read the article. He backs every claim he makes with overwhelming amounts of evidence. And it's clear that Michael Flynn not only had strong disagreements with the Iran deal, but believed that there were secret, nefarious side deals that were involved in the Iran deal, which would kick in later. And apparently it's having all this stuff exposed is what the Obama administration, Obama personally, who's an egomaniac, feared mostly from Michael Flynn. Is if Michael Flynn became National Security Advisor, certainly, especially after Trump had talked about it in the campaign, getting rid of the Iran deal. But Flynn was going to take it one step farther and dig into the dirty details about a lot of other things that we did not know about, some secret deals or something on the side, and a lot of other shenanigans that took place around the Iran deal, including straight up lies to sell the deal. So, according to Lee Smith in this piece, it was Flynn's testimony about Al-Qaeda and ISIS being still on the move and not being defeated or anything else, and also the fact that as National Security Advisor, he would have unearthed the sordid details of the Iran deal, many of which have never been brought to public light. It's a really, really good article. It's a little bit of a read. It takes a few minutes to read it. It's kind of a long article, but it's not like sitting down reading a book or anything. You can read it in, 10 to 15 minutes. But it's not your typical short little article like you'll see on Gateway Pundit or something where, it's a 1 minute read or something. This is a very detailed story. Highly recommend that you take a look at it. And this also kind of dovetails into something that we heard from Svetlana Lakova, and she's done quite a few interviews. She's got a book out talking about her experience, and I watched her interview very closely with Dan Bongino. I watched her interview with Sebastian Gorka. I watched her interview with the Epoch Times and several other interviews that she's done, as well as read just about everything I could find on her. One of my subs did mention in the comment section that there's an interview with Tracy Beans. And I think when that came out, I did see some of that. But I went back and tried to find it yesterday, and just in a search in YouTube, and I was not able to pull it up. So I don't know if that's been taken down or whatever. I'll have to go to Tracy Beans' homepage and see if it's there. I didn't find it in the general search. But essentially, Lakova making the same argument, taking this back to 2014 with Michael Flynn. And of course, Lakova talks about the fact that, Halper and people around this London Center of International Law Practice were actually targeting Flynn, trying to set him up going back 2014, that same time frame. So it means that there was a relationship or some sort of coordination with the London Center of International Law Practice, which of course brought in Flynn. That's how they lured Papadopoulos in. They had Lakova there. Now, it shouldn't surprise you to know that the London Center for International Law Practice has folded up. They have changed their name, and they have moved to another location. They got a new name, but it's the same thing. It's essentially a spider web of spies and various other people, and it appears to operate as an intelligence hub, a place where they can lure in potential targets, and the place is crawling with ex-spies. So that appears to be what the LCIP is. And Papadopoulos talks about this, Lakova talks about this. And she was brought in there in 2015. When you look at the cast of characters, Halper hangs out there, Downer, Mifsud, all these people associated with this, Christopher Steele, his partner Burroughs, all these people, Dearlove, in fact, it was Dearlove and Christopher Andrew. Of course, Andrews is the MI5 historian. Richard Dearlove was the former head of MI6. They apparently were the guys who started this London Center for International Law Practice. And the story from Lakova's book, she talks about the fact that they had come up with a smear, obviously, that she was having an affair with Flynn. That's false. They also said that she was going to be going on a trip with Flynn to Russia and that she was going to be a translator for him. That was complete false. There were a couple follow-up emails with Flynn's staff and a couple with him, but only because at that dinner where they met and had a short conversation, Lakova showed Flynn a picture, a postcard with Joseph Stalin, taken in the 1930s or something. And there was a background story, some history to it that was interesting to Flynn, and he wanted Lakova to send him a copy of the postcard or a photo of it or something, and they were going to communicate, and she was going to, make that happen and send him this. He wanted to use it in negotiations with Russia or something. So there was this, harmless sort of not too serious follow-up situation going on. But as Lakova has stated and has been pretty well proven by just about everyone around them, that there was no truth to any of the lies that were being put out about Lakova being a spy, working for Russia, her and Flynn working together, all this kind of stuff. Total BS. It was all just part of the overall coup. But clearly we can see from what Lakova talks about, and remember, probably no one can give us a better insight into Stefan Halper than Lakova, because even though she didn't like him and he didn't like her and they didn't talk very much, she was there at the London Center quite a bit when Halper would make regular appearances there to give speeches or pass propaganda around or whatever. So she had a pretty good feel who Halper was and what kind of a dirty, player this guy is and the type of things that he's involved in. And so she had good insight, and she talks about the fact that Halper was working on Flynn in 2014. And of course, we've all heard that rumor that Mifsud was at that RT dinner and that he may have been acting on behalf of Halper. That's why I believe that Halper may have been the person who brought Mifsud into the game. I don't know that. I think it's a logical leap, if you will. But anyway, it's a pretty interesting article by Lee Smith, or anything you can read on Lakova. Both of these two, Lee Smith and Lakova, are able to take us back 2 years with Michael Flynn. So it wasn't anything that just happened as a result of the Trump campaign. He was targeted long before that for other reasons. So you might want to give that information a look, but definitely take a look at Lee Smith's article on TableMag.com. Very, very worth tabletmag.com. Very much worth your time. Now, let's get to some other things here. Well, now we have Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci now coming out and saying that the lockdowns could be trouble for the economy. Man, oh man, why did we ever listen to this guy in the first place? He comes out and tells us masks are good, then masks are bad, then the models are great, then the models suck. This model, that model. Well, we're using this model, but it's not, well, we just found this model's not working. How about that? Well, we're watching this, watching that. We'll do this, do that. This guy has effed it up from day one throughout. And when you look at the people that he runs around with and hangs around with, you gotta wonder. You gotta wonder. What's this guy's true motives? Everyone he's connected to is connected to people who hate Trump. I mean, this guy's appeared in photos with some people that just, it's head scratching. A lot of photos with him with Pelosi, 2 or 3 photos with him with Pelosi, Pelosi's daughter, Pelosi's son. His daughter is a, software person for Facebook. I mean, his wife's involved with a bunch of deep staters. Every time you turn around, he's there in the picture with the Bilderbergs. I mean, this guy's tied into Bill Gates and all these people. This guy's tied into a lot of people who hate Trump, who have an agenda to keep the economy locked down to hurt Trump in 2020. It just seems like a lot of people connected to him have an agenda that's not necessarily one that would be good for the country, only good for the politics of the Democrats in November. And it seems now that everything that you look at this guy, you go back, first he told us it was safe, no need to worry about the virus. All of a sudden now we've got to lock down the entire country, bring the country to a grind. Then we have to wear masks and they're not good. Now he's saying, oh, we can't keep the country locked down. That could be terrible. I mean, I would just kick this guy off the damn stage and quit listening to him. I said that a month ago. Him and Dr. Birx, the scarf-wearing magpie. I would just get both of them. I wouldn't hear from either of them anymore. I would bring in my economic people, and I would start getting the country back on track. These people have messed it up from day one. They've been wrong on just about everything. I see no reason to listen to these people anymore. I am done with them, and I think Trump is too. What a fraud. I read this letter that Ty Clevenger, who represents Ed Butowski in the Seth Rich case, I read this letter that he sent to Richard Grenell. It's pretty good. And he's asking Grenell to release everything. He's specifically targeting 31 pages that he's told exist that are held within the NSA. So this would mean that Grenell would have the sole authority to release the Seth Rich material. Now, I read the letter, and Clevenger makes an excellent, excellent case for why Grenell should release everything they've got on Seth Rich. I don't have time to go into the details of the letter, but, I mean, it's an excellent letter. He makes a very good case. So, I don't know if Grenell will go this far, but I would certainly love it if before Grenell leaves his position, and Ratcliffe, I believe, is going to be sworn in on Tuesday. So he's still got some time. So I would love it if the last thing Grenell does on his way out the door is release everything they've got on Seth Rich. We will see. We also learned that this investigation that Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray has announced is largely being driven by Jeff Jensen and the work that he's done. And their investigation is going to take what Jeff Jensen found, and that's going to be the predicate for the investigation they're going to run. And Jensen is going to be in the mix, kind of overseeing this, involved in this. I don't know about heading it up, but he's in the mix, which makes me think that maybe this didn't originate. Maybe this wasn't a Christopher No Shit Sherlock Ray idea, but maybe an Attorney General Barr idea. Because I can't imagine Ray wanting to bring Jensen in. I mean, Jensen has been the guy who really has made Ray look like a fool. He's literally made Ray look like a fool. So I don't know why Ray would be wanting to have this guy around. It looks more likely to me that maybe Barr called Ray and said, hey, dude, you're getting pounded in the press. You need to do something. And quite honestly, I've been defending you now for a very long time, but it's getting hard to defend you. Here's an idea for what you might do. Use your internal investigation unit to evaluate within the FBI to at least ways get these people off your back and mine. And just to make sure that we're looking at the right things, I'm going to send over Jeff Jensen, who's also working with Durham, and he's going to assist you with providing you with documents and things that he used to get to where he is that helped us make the decision we made. So there might be a lot more going on to this in a backstory than we know right now. There's also these links. We found out from the declassified unmaskings that there were 2 Italian officials, Vanessa, let's see, who are they? John Phillips and Kelly Dugan, 2 Italian embassy officials, diplomats, who unmasked Flynn, which kind of draws you back to Italy, where we know that Durham and Barr went 2 times, and apparently the second time, according to the Italian media, that wasn't a very friendly meeting. Essentially, Barr and Durham accused the Italian government of not being straight with them, not coming clean with them, or what have you. And it was right after they came back from Italy that Durham's investigation became a criminal investigation. And we also have all these other things around that were going on in Italy. The very first FBI agent to come in contact with Christopher Steele about the so-called Steele dossier information was in Rome, Mike Gaeta, who turned out to be Steele's handler. That was July 5th of 2016. We also have Link University and is located in Rome, and that's where all these characters hang out. Misfit and Halper and all these people. And certainly Gaeta would be very familiar with Link University. That's where the CIA and the FBI train their spies. And he's right there in Rome. He certainly would have known all these people. It was Vincenzo Scotti, who's a major player with Link University, an investor, I understand, who is the one who introduced Papadopoulos to Misfit. Then also we know that Barack Hussein Obama invited Matteo Renzi, the Prime Minister of Italy, to the White House in October of 2016 as his guest of honor, and this was the last official White House dinner. It's a big deal. And he makes Renzi his guest of honor, the Italian PM. Then Obama visits Italy for 2 days after that, and before he leaves office, where he meets with Renzi. So you have all this stuff going on around Italy, and it appears that there's smoke in Rome, which means there must be some fire. And that probably explains why Barr and Durham took 2 trips there, and I think they probably learned some things. And I think we're going to find out if Durham is able to get to the bottom of this, despite people lying to him. I think we're going to find out that Italy was maybe, in terms of the Operation Crossfire Hurricane and all that went on after that, may have been the place where everything really started in the Trump coup, as far as the shady dealings and stuff. That stuff was cooked up in and around that theater in Italy, Rome. So we'll continue to keep our eyes and ears peeled as we hopefully learn more about exactly what the hell was happening in Italy in the summer of 2016. Did you know that Perkins Coie has billed the Biden campaign for hundreds of thousands of dollars since 2016? And we assume that's still continuing. They are essentially the law firm handling the affairs for Biden and his campaign, just as they did for Rotten Reverend, and now we know Obama. That's right. Obama also, we know, in 2016, even though he wasn't running for president anymore, it was the Rotten Reverend, but we know that Obama he paid a total of $990-something thousand, almost $1 million to Perkins Coie in 2016, and the 2 largest payments that he made to Perkins Coie in 2016 were in September and October of 2016. Not to mention that, we also have learned that Obama used Fusion GPS to do opposition research on Romney. So Obama, very familiar with Perkins Coie, very familiar with Fusion GPS. And we know that Mary Jacoby went to the White House for a little visit right after Mike Rogers shut down the illegal spying operations at the NSA database in the spring of 2016. A week later, after Rogers shuts it down, there's Mary Jacoby, the wife of Glenn Simpson, at the White House. And of course, we know her connections to the Clintons in Arkansas, where she grew up. Now, one last thing, not probably the last thing on the subject, but just another thing that's out there because people are still scratching their head and trying to figure out this. With the call with Flynn, we now know was not unmasked because it was never masked. Therefore, it didn't need to be unmasked. Okay, so that tells us something. Not that there weren't, 39 other cases of Michael Flynn being unmasked, because there were by various officials. But in the Flynn-Kislyak phone call that we're talking about, and we now learn that they talked 5 times on that day, on the 29th of December, while Flynn was on vacation. Kislyak had just been advised that Obama was kicking out ambassadors, and that would include Kislyak. So he's essentially been kicked out of his office. He's not in the embassy. So even if they have an ongoing FISA on Kislyak, he wouldn't have been on the phone system there. And we assume that the Russians have given him some kind of a secure phone. So we also know that, as far as we know, at this point, there was no Class 3 search warrant on Flynn, and probably not on Kislyak. That would be a criminal. Type 3 search warrant is for a criminal investigation. So you wouldn't have gotten that. They certainly would have had an ongoing FISA on a Russian ambassador. I think that's routine. Always listening to the foreign ambassadors. But it still doesn't explain how they got that call and these other calls if Kislyak had already been evacuated the embassy. And so now there's a lot of people suggesting something else may have happened as far as how they were able to monitor those phone conversations between Kislyak and Flynn. And we know there were quite a few, and in fact 5 on December the 29th, which is the day in question. But a lot of people now are talking about it may be a possibility that the FBI used a Stingray device. A Stingray device, which is still, it's in the Patriot Act that it can be used for terrorists and stuff like that, but it's not supposed to be used in domestic policing, even though we know it is used in domestic policing. But whenever the cases go to court, they just have to, they can't use any of the intelligence that they gathered from it. They can't admit to that anyway. And essentially, what a Stingray device is it essentially is an interception device for cell phones. It's essentially like the black box. You can place these devices. They have a large unit, which is like a receiving unit, and then they have the smaller units, about that big, about the big, maybe a pack of cigarettes or something. And this can be deployed on a telephone pole, on a sign, in a tree, on a roof, near a gutter. These things can be deployed, and they can pick up both sides of a cell phone conversation and transmit that to another base unit, which can catalog it. And so now there's a lot of people asking the question, was that call monitored through a Stingray device? And that would mean that would not be good. There would have to be some reason for that. And it's something that they would try to cover up and keep secret. And so that is something a lot of people are talking about now. Was it possibly a Stingray device that was used to capture the phone calls? Alrighty, well, I'm out of time. So that's all I have for today. Don't forget to get your vote in for Dumbass of the Week. And we'll talk about Alexander Down the Hatch Downer tomorrow, and some big trouble coming his way. See you then. Bye.